Today, we're going to crack the code on a key part of your blood test, MCH. You've probably seen it on a lab report. It's just a tiny little acronym, but trust me, it can tell a huge story about your health. So let's dive in and decode it together.
So have you ever gotten that lab report back? You're scanning that long list of acronyms and numbers, and you just feel like you're trying to read a foreign language. You see MCH, MCV, RDW, and your eyes just kind of glaze over. Well, let me tell you, you are definitely not alone. We're here to translate one of the most important clues in that entire report.
Okay, so before we can really understand MCH, we have to talk about the bigger picture it helps to paint. And that picture, more often than not, starts with a condition you've probably heard of called anemia.
So what is it exactly? Well, the World Health Organization puts it pretty simply. Anemia is when the concentration of hemoglobin in your blood is lower than it should be. And hemoglobin? That's the super important protein inside your red blood cells that carries oxygen all over your body. So yeah, you can see why having enough of it is pretty crucial for, well, everything.
And when you don't have enough of that oxygen-carrying power, your body's going to let you know. You might feel this general weakness or a fatigue that just doesn't seem to go away, no matter how much you rest. Simple things like walking up the stairs could leave you dizzy or short of breath. You might even start getting headaches or feeling your heart flutter. These are all classic signals that your body's engine is running on low fuel.
So if anemia is the mystery we're trying to solve, you can think of MCH as one of the very first tools the investigator, in this case your doctor, grabs to start cracking the case.
So what in the world does MCH stand for? It's mean corpuscular hemoglobin. Yeah, I know, it's a mouthful. But all it really means is the average amount, or you could think of it as the average weight of hemoglobin that's packed into each one of your individual red blood cells. It's not about how many cells you have, but how much good stuff is inside each one.
You know, an even simpler way to think about it is as the color of your red blood cells. See, hemoglobin is the protein that gives blood its rich red color. So MCH is basically telling your doctor how vibrant and colorful each cell is. Is each cell carrying a full load of that oxygen cargo, or is it running a little light?
All right, now this is where the rubber meets the road. This table lays out the whole spectrum. That sweet spot, what we call normochromic, is right there between 27 and 33 picograms. Now, if your value dips below 27, your cells are called hypochromic. Hypo meaning less color. If it goes above 33, they're hyperchromic. Hyper meaning excess color. Each of those terms points us down a very different investigative path.
So what happens when that test comes back saying hypochromic? What's the story when your red blood cells are running a little light on their hemoglobin cargo? Let's take a closer look.
Just like the name suggests, hypochromic means your red blood cells are literally paler than they should be. They just don't have that rich, healthy red color because they are underpacked with hemoglobin. You know, they're trying to do their job, but they just haven't been given enough equipment to do it right.
And what's the number one culprit here? 9 times out of 10, it comes down to iron deficiency. You see, iron is a fundamental building block for hemoglobin. If you don't have enough iron, your body simply cannot produce enough hemoglobin to fill up those red blood cells. It's a direct cause and effect that leads straight to a low MCH value. Now, the consequences here are probably going to sound pretty familiar. A low MCH is a classic sign of certain types of anemia, which means you're going to experience those classic symptoms, that deep, persistent fatigue, finding it harder to get through your workday, and maybe feeling dizzy or lightheaded. It's a direct result of your body being starved for oxygen.
All right, let's totally flip the script. What if your MCH value is high? What's the story when your red blood cells are hyperchromic, when they seem to be overpacked with hemoglobin?
So, sticking with our color analogy, hyperchromic means excess color. Now, you might be thinking, hey, more hemoglobin, that sounds like a good thing, right? Well, not so fast. In biology, balance is everything. These oversaturated cells are another huge clue for your doctor.
And one of the most common reasons for this high reading is actually a deficiency in vitamin B12. This vitamin is absolutely essential for making red blood cells correctly. Without enough B12, the whole production process can go haywire, and you end up with red blood cells that are often larger and more packed with hemoglobin than they should be.
And the consequences of a B12 deficiency can be really serious. You'll see some overlap with general anemia symptoms, like weakness and heart palpitations. But, and this is critical, B12 deficiency can also lead to neurological problems, like that pins and needles feeling or numbness in your hands and feet. This is a perfect example of why just knowing you have anemia isn't enough.
Finding out the type of anemia is what really matters.
Whew, we have covered a lot of ground, from cells that are too pale to cells that are oversaturated. But before we finish, there is one incredibly important point that I need to make absolutely crystal clear. Okay, here's the bottom line. Your blood test is a complex story, and MCH is just one clue. It's a really important piece of the puzzle, for sure, but it almost never tells the whole story on its own. Your doctor is looking at it alongside a bunch of other values, your symptoms, and your medical history to conduct the full investigation.
I love this way of putting it. MCH is just a single chapter in the book of your health. It might be a very, very telling chapter, but your doctor is the one who can actually read the whole story. So the next time you see that MCH value on your report, you won't just see a number. You'll know what it means, and you'll know it's one important part of a much bigger and, frankly, fascinating narrative.